And this goes to the system 1 versus system 2 stuff?
Yeah, it might be. It could be.
Yeah. Okay, so let me ask everybody, it's 13 after 5. How are we feeling? We want to go to 20 after? Do you want to stop now?
Let's find a good place.
Okay.
This is a good place, fine. If not, go a little more.
It's not the best place because we just started the section.
But we are kind of,
Yeah, so let me just very
Disconnected
quickly
from
go
where we
through
were.
this. And I'm not going to go into any details about this right now. Let me just say that the different concepts that I thought would be useful for the Tetris playing agent. You know, it's not that many. So, monomino,
yes.
polyomino, and I'll go into details about this next time rather than belaboring it. But I thought that was a nice thing. So even though specifically for the playing of the game, you don't have to have a concept of a polyomino. We have instances of different things that are polyominoes. And we talked in one of the earlier discussions about superordinate, subordinate, types of categories, concepts. So it might be interesting just to try to see if we can do something like this. That's why I added it in there. Also, it sort of illustrates some interesting complexities with some of these things, which I'll go over next time. You have to have some concept of what connected is. What does it mean for two tetrominoes to be, or not two tetrominoes, but two monominos, monominos. I don't know why I can't say that word, but to be connected. So that has to be understood, and it's not an easy thing to declare. I guess you can come with some logical statements to say this, but this is one of those things that it goes to something that Barcelo is trying to figure out as well in his paper about, if you're not going to use something like mentalese to say this stuff, how do you indicate some of these relationships in a perceptual symbol, in a modal, grounded way? So the fact that this basic concept of are these things connected really is needed for this agent. It's a fundamental thing. I think it's actually quite good because it'll force us to deal with that. And let me just point out very quickly. So I have this little section here about past exemplars. But this thing here, even though it's not really a polyomino, it is a connected sequence of these guys. So it's actually something that's needed for the game because you need to understand that stack at the bottom.
So you have monomino, polyomino, and connectedness as your three core.
So I also threw in unconnected. You don't necessarily need to do that as long as you have connected. But if somebody said to you, draw a picture of two things that are unconnected, I think I have a separate concept of unconnected versus connected. But not necessarily needed, but it's there. All right, so this I just had there to show some of the complexity that we're talking about here. Even though these are technically touching, they're not connected.
Yeah. Gibson has something about detached or detachable objects, versus objects that are like a tree that are,
Well, if you can think about it tomorrow morning, tell me about that more detail. I'll probably forget it. I'll try to remember.
I was just making a passing remark. If you think it's significant, I can bring it up. But I was just
okay. Sorry, I was trying to plow through it, so I can't even really think too much about.
Okay, I thought you were finished. I'm sorry.
Almost there. And then this final thing. So tetromino obviously is a very important one. This complete lineness, I think that's actually extremely important because that really goes towards part of its goals. Its sub-goals are related to understanding what a complete line is and how to get there. So I think you need the concept of complete lineness. So maybe that's a good place to stop. What I'm trying to get at is this diagram. There's a little bit of review about PAM, but we're already over. So
That's coming up?
That's coming up.
Okay.
Any other quick questions or? Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Nice job. So, are you to be continued next week?
Can I have a break of 1 week?
Sure.
I will be gone the following week. So.
Oh, okay. Is that your surgery the following week?
Yeah.
Okay, something else, okay.
Alrighty.
All right. Well, thanks again. Appreciate everybody's attention and questions.
We're gonna meet for a little.